Oh my God, last panel. I mean, who's ready for happy hour or something? I promise we are going to make this fun. It's going to be very interactive and exciting. So I'm Andrew Fryer. I work in brand partnerships at Zynga. If you don't know us, we make games for grown-ups, so please indulge in your inner child as adults. So as an icebreaker, you've obviously just been introduced to my esteemed panelists. Just go down the road. So what has been your favorite emerging marketing trend in the last 5 to 10 years? It could be creative-driven, data-driven, so please tell us and why.
We weren't going to get the favorite song question. I was waiting for that one. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. A little bit pretty close. Oh, I think that's a good question. I'm not going to say AI, because my guess is, and I came a little late, but we've talked about AI a lot. I do think kind of that personalization, customization when it comes to ad technology was something that I thought kind of revolutionized from a personalization targeting standpoint, how we serve advertisements to our prospective consumers and clients. So I would say that to me over the last 10 years is something that has been really revolutionary.
It's a good one. For me, one that we use all the time, fast advertising. It's a term Ryan has coined, where we see something in the marketplace, we see an opportunity, we immediately go into sort of like production, put an ad or a piece of content out in the marketplace, and watch it react. So it's been insane. We did an ad in basically 4 hours once, which I didn't think was possible. Yeah, we saw a tweet come out, and the tweet was like, I want to be in one of these Mint Mobile ads from an actor. And I found out about it as the team was on their way to his house to shoot him. And I was like, we're in production? Great. And it changes the norms. Like, as a marketer on this side of the table, you have to give up control. But what you gain in return is speed and relevance. So I think it's a good trade, but that one's been a huge one for us.
Must be nice to have Ryan Reynolds as a marketing partner.
Doesn't suck.
I think the trend that I'm thinking of seems kind of easy and obvious, but short form video content, I think, has changed the game. I look back like 5 or 6 years ago. You're creating maybe a 30-second, 60-second ad that can run across TV, maybe YouTube, and a couple other video platforms, and now you're able to create dozens and hundreds, run them concurrently across platforms like TikTok and Snap and Instagram, and I think everybody knows that video creates a deeper connection with your customers and your potential customers, and so being able to optimize these videos, being able to shoot multiple videos with multiple types of people and multiple styles that can kind of cross all the genres and all the audiences you want to target. I think that's something that revolutionized marketing the last few years.
All true and great. So the topic for today is emerging trends to optimize marketing spend, and I know that is a mouthful. I think we've been dancing around it. We are not going to talk about AI as much as it might come up. We are not. That's a no-no. But kicking off the discussion, what does optimizing marketing spend in today's landscape mean to you? So we can do a reverse. We can start with Steve and go down.
I'll stay in the middle.
Yeah.
Optimizing marketing spend. I think every marketer, just about every marketer I've talked to in the last 6 to 12 months, has basically said, that the marketing budgets are tougher, are tighter, getting pulled, headcounts harder to get as well. Budget growth has to be earned. I think all those things are common themes right now in marketing, and so I think marketing optimization right now is just about being smarter. Really tapping into audiences, audience targeting, data-driven measurement and attribution. I think all of those things. I think if we're brand innovators, so if you have a brand campaign, you have to tie KPIs to the brand campaign, and make sure that it's performing and kind of related to business outcomes. So, I think optimization right now is just really about just getting more from less. Does that make sense?
For us, it's a little different. So Mint is only 8 years old, and Mint got to $1 billion within 8 years. The only way we could scale like that is through continuous optimization. So we run, the way my group is set up, within the marketing division is the direct-to-consumer business, and that's retention, e-commerce, and media. There's a balance between e-commerce and media where we never stop optimizing. So pick one. We'll take e-com. Okay, so we're constantly looking at e-commerce. We run over 90 e-commerce CRO tests a year with this stated goal of always improving the conversion rate of the website. If your website becomes more efficient, you can now put more media into the system and bring more traffic in. So we're constantly doing this, right? Like one wins, then the other scales. The other scales, this one needs to win. And because we've never stopped doing that, it's allowed us to grow exponentially, but it's the backbone of our business. It's, I think, one of the reasons T-Mobile is acquiring us, or did acquire us, is because we have that skill on the e-com platform and within media, and it's ever present. In fact, I was talking today with my team. What happens is you end up moving so fast because you're continuously optimizing that sometimes brand can be left behind. And we had to reset and go, look, while we're doing this and speed is key, you have to explain to the brand team why we're doing this so that way they can give you the appropriate brand inputs to give you more latitude to test. So for us, it's ingrained in everything we do, and it's all about getting more for every dollar so we can get more dollars.
So American Girl is a little bit different, right? We're a brand that's been around almost 40 years, so a little older,
Yeah.
a little bit older, and we reach consumers in a variety of ways. Obviously, the crux of the brand, we're selling toys, we're selling dolls, right? But then brick and mortar stores also have experiences in them. We market that as a day to remember. You can come and have a tea time with your daughter. You can have a brunch. We have holiday events as well. And so when we talk about optimization, we look at it from a true channel perspective and from a brand perspective, right? It's what is the marketing that is the most appropriate for each channel that's going to drive conversion, but also give us a consistency of brand messaging. Because I think the brand part of it is something that's really important and almost sometimes will get deprioritized because, look, we're all marketers, right? We have a bottom line we try to hit. It's all about selling whatever product you're trying to sell. But I think these days with consumers, you cannot have the brand get lost or else consumers won't know what you're about. So I think it's how much are you spending, what are you spending against, and what makes sense. Like for us, it's what makes sense in e-com. Now, we don't optimize as much as you guys do, but that is something that's important, but it is only about, 60% of our business. The remaining comes through brick and mortar or wholesale. So we can't forget those channels, and what is important there, again, is how to reach those consumers, and what are the marketing vehicles that are most important, again, for those channels.
So shifting to audience and media focus, when you look at new technologies that are emerging every year, which is really par for the digital marketing course and landscape that we thrive in, or as we have come to know, the Internet of Things. But traditional marketing channels still exist, TV, out of home, live sports sponsorships. How are you balancing traditional tactics with more innovative ones, in order to stay culturally relevant? Which marketing channels, platforms, or technologies are gaining traction? How might they alter your spending priorities in 2025 and beyond? I'm actually going to shift it. Let's start with Aron, because you do have somebody who is a culture hound at your fingertips. So,
Well, it's interesting. One of the things I did early on was I set 10% of our budget aside for the unknown, unproven, and untested. And if you start with that, it's not hard to keep it there as you scale. And we're doing things that could be a new type of content, this, that, the other. We also like to invent our own stuff. So we were the first brand, and I think the only wireless brand that sends you a holiday card. And it was just like, honestly, it was something we thought, I stole it shamelessly from Southwest, and I know we have United in here, I'm sorry, but they send you a birthday card, right? And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. What if we did a holiday card? Because we don't collect a lot of personal information from our customers, so I don't know when their birthday is. So we thought that'd be fun, and that's a decent little piece of my budget every year. That started as just a fun thing that keeps scaling, and it ends up becoming quite popular every year. Last year we sent a temporary tattoo out with it, with Ryan's face, and a woman got it permanently tattooed onto her body. No regrets is literally what the tattoo said and what hers did. But I think, yeah, she's got wireless for life for free. Okay? It's a big commitment. Just no laser removal. No, I'm kidding. But like when we look at emerging, I let the team tell me what they want to do. I feel like it's my job to get the war chest and to protect it and to make sure it's being used in a way that's truly unknown, unproven, untested. And what we've found over the years, because we had to start with basically nothing, is that if you place lots of small bets, the nice thing about a digital business is when you find a win, you can scale. And we'll go heavy. And we're pretty unique in that when we were private, we were a blank check marketing company. So if it worked and our cost per acquisition was within reason, we just scaled until it didn't. So those unproven and unknowns have paid huge dividends to us. We're going right away.
Let's go, Mondona.
So being that we've been a brand that's been around for a while, I mean, I think we've tried all sorts of different types of advertising platforms, mechanisms. I mean, we also still do catalog, right? Like I have to say, like some of you guys are nodding your heads. I'm guessing some of your moms and daughters have gone through it. It's still really effective for us. It's expensive, but you got to think of it as a piece of advertising that will stay in a home for several months and will get constant eyeballs on it, right? And so when we're thinking about like the cost versus the attention, the engagement we're getting, it is truly a value. Now, I think obviously we have a few different segments that we cater to on American Girl. Girls, you know, people who want the dolls, they're our number one purchase drivers, right? It is getting harder and harder to reach kids. There's obviously YouTube. There's restrictions there. We did a Roblox game for American Girl because that's where all the kids were. They didn't make sense at the time, you know? It didn't make sense for us in the long run. So I think there's things that you also learn when you're thinking about like what makes sense. We've tried out of home. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. But I think what has worked the best for us, given the multiple segments that we cater to, is more of that tailored, customized type of advertising to a kid, to a mom, and to a gift giver. It's different types of messaging, it's different types of creative, and I know that's expensive, but it is truly what drives the most like acquisition and retention for us, agnostic of platform.
I'm definitely going to steal unknown, unproven, and untested.
Take it.
Love it. Love it. For us, so traditional media, you know, I think live sports is something that we love. Love the unduplicated reach that we can get. But I think there's a time in the business that it makes more sense. You know, last year we were launching a new product. We had Travis Kelce as a spokesperson, and you know we had to be in every Chiefs game, and you know we were, you know, had to follow the Taylor Swift phenomenon, and you know that was a thing. It was a moment. It was high reach, and it was kind of needed at the time. And I look at this year, and we don't have the new product to launch. You know, we don't have a big celebrity to tie it to, so we have to think about. You know, we still love live sports. We still love the NFL, but there's other ways of getting in there without, you know, paying for the big tentpole in-game sponsorships and ads. And so, you know, some of the things we did around the Olympics was instead of making a big Olympics commitment, get aligned with some Olympic athletes as influencers, run them across digital. You know, proved to be successful, and then instead of buying the big linear package, you know, do some stuff with Peacock and shoulder content around the Olympics, and that worked. And then this year with NFL and college football, I think we're going to be a little bit more tactical as well. You know, less about those big in-game, placements. Maybe we do an in-game placement, but it will be with Amazon where you can layer in audience targeting, or YouTube live sports where you can layer in audience targeting. I think it's just now the crossover between traditional and some of like the digital options that you have, kind of make that buy a little bit, a little bit more targeted and a little bit smarter, I guess.
Can I add one more thing into that?
You can.
Well, because we talk about it, and I think, you'll hear lots of successes, but the trick to this is actually failure. You have to go in with the mindset that 80% of it's going to fail. Okay? You're doing something you've never done before. You're trying a new tech, a new platform, whatever. If you go in with the approach of hedging your bet, having a small bet in a place, and it fails, it's not a big deal. We fail so much. It's a thing. I get mad at the team when they're all wins. I'm like, you guys aren't pushing the envelope hard enough. We're not failing enough. So I would just say that take this, but go into it with an understanding that most of the time it's not going to work, but that's okay because you've managed the size of the bet you're going to place on it.
That's a good segue to creative focus, and obviously optimizing sales we know is the outcome of optimizing the customer journey. Silver bullet for advertisers has always been being at the right place at the right time with the right message. Now we probably have to add with the right personalized message. It's always easy to say and harder to do. What role does personalization play in optimizing your customer segments, and how effectively are you implementing this across all different channels? What are some of those challenges? How do you overcome them? Aaron, you're going to go second just as a heads up. So,
Okay.
Mondona, go for it.
Okay. So I would say on American Girl specifically, I think in the last couple of years we did a lot of work from a CDP perspective, and we just started implementing that work about a year ago, and that's made a huge shift for us. Something that's key to our business model is the retention of existing customers. If you guys are familiar with our products, they're not cheap for what they are, right? It's like a doll that's 18 inches, it's $115, right? It's expensive. But the way that we are looking at data and slicing it now is making sure that every time we acquire a customer, that we are spending against retaining that customer for at least a few years, right? Knowing what age their kid is. We have different products for different ages and stages, right? It's not just the 18-inch doll that people know American Girl for. So how do we get them in, and then once they're in, how do we retain them? And that is through our loyalty program. We're also revamping our whole loyalty program. It's really important for us that those people who are in that loyalty program, they spend a lot on the brand. So I think that's something that, as we're talking about the right message, the right time, is also how frequently are you engaging with them, communicating them, and serving them up things that you think they'll be interested in based on the information that you have.
Yeah, retention. I'm gonna use that too. For us, our acquisition dollars are optimized to perform, right? We just want to get the customer in. We do, from the retention side, it's much more personalized. We use an in-house acronym, NBE. It's the next best everything. So what we do is we know, so Mint Mobile is a wireless service if you didn't know what it was, but we know that if you turn on Wi-Fi calling, you'll just have a better experience, have that toggle switched on in our app. That leads to 10% better renewals. So when it comes to personalization, what we do is we take aggregate data and then look at the individual subscriber and then put them on a roadmap or a pathway to make their experience better, and then the retention just follows. Our goal as a brand is about saving people money and having a great experience. Those are the two things. And if we feel if we're doing that, you won't leave because, one, it's hard to find somebody more affordable than us, but two, why would you want to leave if you're having a great experience and the business is optimizing it just for you? And we found remarkable success with renewals, and that's the lifeline to our business.
So for us, we're one of the biggest data providers in the world, but it's also really, really hard being a credit bureau and being a consumer business within a credit bureau to actually use that data, activate the data, and really get a personalized use of it for marketing. And so I feel like we've been behind the times, and everyone expects us to be the best at it, and it's hard. And so, my team, who's here, has really been working hard to kind of get this data, right? We have this powerful credit data for people, right? Knowing their scores and reports and what credit cards they have in their wallet, and if they have a car or a house. You have all these, segments that we can create, but we aren't using them in the right way. And so, for me, I love hearing success stories about it, because it's like what we strive to be, and we're getting there. But I think I still think we have a lot of work to do, and we just kind of have to get beyond this, kind of Experian machine that's kind of holding us down, even though the consumer side of the business has 75 million consumers with all this authenticated data, but we still have trouble accessing it. So I'm hopeful for the future of it, because I think that we have a lot of opportunity there.
Perfect. Looking at measurement, so we know that there's continuous measurement feedback. We're living and breathing various measurement tools, like new ones are always popping up. You're poring over data-driven insights. What are some measurement best practices or watch-outs that you can share with the crowd based on your experience? Is it product sales? Is that the KPI? Steve, maybe that's not necessarily for Experian, but what are some other success indicators you aim for? And we'll start with you on that.
Yeah, so definitely not sales, but directly. But obviously, acquisition is big for us. I'm going to switch it up a little bit and think about a KPI we have for like our streaming buy, our streaming channel, connected television. We think that we're pretty good at measuring TV performance, TV impact, and I think we're decently okay in measuring CTV. But I think what we've added on in the last year and a half is looking at incremental reach of our linear buy to streaming, and I think that's kind of been a game changer for us, because we're trying to find the unique audience. We know that if we're buying linear, you're not always going to, you're going to reach kind of that same audience, and it's not always the right audience, and especially when we're trying to get younger. We know that's not the place to do it. So, you have a million CTV options, and you find the ones that create the bigger incremental lift on top of the linear audience that you're reaching. And so, I think that's one for us that kind of sticks out and a little bit different than your traditional KPIs. Switch it up.
Sure. A little variety at 440 is not bad. Okay, so
We're almost through.
yeah. Okay. Yes, product sales, very important, right? There's a couple of things, like there's one that I will, a KPI I'll say from the commercial standpoint that's important, and then I think on the brand side as well, because again, you should be looking at both, right, for a longevity of a consumer brand. The commercial side, something that we look at is our AOV. So if you guys are familiar, with the retail landscape, it's your average order value. And the reason that's important for us, and we look at it both on the brick and mortar side and on the e-com side as well, is that we might, even if we're not getting a ton of new consumers, if we're doing our job well from a retention standpoint, that AOV is going to be higher, which that's ultimately what we want to see. Is the goal is a lot of people coming in high AOV, but I think AOV is a more healthy measure for us than just a product sale, right? Again, given the category, given our price points. From a brand standpoint, I think something that's always really important to look at, and this is like old school, is the unaided awareness. We've been around, again, almost 40 years, like decades, right? And Mattel as a whole has brands that have been around longer than that. And for us, it's, aided awareness is great, but it's unaided awareness, I think, where you're going to need to do the most work and what's going to eventually bring more customers into your brand and help to grow your top line.
I'm gonna take a little different swing at this. So, like, being a digital business, Jesus Christ, there's a million companies trying to sell us analytics packages. When I started, we were We were signing up with Oracle for something, and I'm like, stop. You can't even implement that, like, let alone understand how to read it. We'll go with the free version of Google, right? And we did. We used it for years because I think accuracy is important, right? Like, if you're spending money, you want to make sure your spend's going right, you're getting the eyeballs. But consistency is actually, I think, more important because, like, we do use GA4. We also use Amplitude as our main tracking mechanisms, but attribution's almost impossible nowadays, right? There's so many different platforms. What you want to do is, if you're always going to miss to the right by an inch, make sure you miss by an inch to the right all the time, because then you can make educated decisions. Like, if your data is scattered all over the place, you're making calls with shit data, and that's terrible, right? Like, I've had this issue in-house where I'm looking at dashboards and I'm like, I can just tell this is wrong. We go into the data lake, we look at it, sure enough, there's an accuracy issue. So, but being consistent in how you measure over time will solve so many of your problems. It just will, because now as managers, right, leaders in the company, we can task our teams with identifying how much deviation is there, but directionally, if it's right, we know we need to move in this direction versus move over here. And that's a big unlock for us, because we don't want to change our measurement techniques and methodologies, because then we have to relearn what are we actually hitting or where are we coming in on the target, right? We all want to be, we had Olympics reference earlier, the Turkish guy just chilling. Like, that's what you need. You don't need all the gear and the fancy gizmos. You just need to be consistent.
Last question. Oh my goodness, brace yourselves. So what emerging technologies will most significantly impact marketing strategies in the next 5 years? Mondona, we'll start with you, or end with you. Yes.
It's the beginning of the end. I think there's a couple things, right? I think one is, like, we're using a lot more technologies that utilize our voice. And I think optimization using voice is going to be something that's probably dug into a little bit deeper, right? We're talking to Siri, and I think that's just what I've seen with technology, where I see, like, eventually the handheld device is going to go away. There's going to be something that's attached to you that you just speak into. It's your personal assistant, right? So I think voice is going to become something that's very important. I think the other thing I would say is, we talked about personalization, customization, so I think it's more just a hyper-personalization, right? Like, right now, we know we send out emails at a certain time because that's when most people are checking their emails. Well, I think, as an example, the next step of that is going to be like AI or whatever that engine is will know, like, when are you most likely personally to look at your email and serve you that email at that time of day, or a text message or what have you. So I think it's just going to become more attuned to everyone's own habits and lifestyle.
Oh, sure. Forget what order we're in. So, I guess one thing that I was thinking about for this was something I'm not super looking forward to, but the chatbot marketing and the introduction of chatbots, not only on the site, but people driving consumers to their chatbot, brands doing that, and it's like, is that going to increase engagement? Is it going to be what people want, or do they want to just continue the shopping behavior, or whatever they're at the site looking for? I think you're starting to see it now a little bit, and it's brands in creative highlighting their chatbot, and it's to me, I still feel like I don't know if everybody's ready for that yet, and I think that time will tell, obviously, but I do think let's say it's intrusive. It's just a different way of thinking, and I think some brands it makes sense, and some it doesn't, and I think everybody's going to force it on you, and I'm curious to see how that plays out.
We have a Fox bot. We love it. Yeah, it's like our first what we would call care deflection tool, but it gets basic questions answered for people. You'd be surprised. The adoption's pretty high.
See, I think that makes sense for care.
Yeah,
I think people are doing it for, like,
Selling.
What are you shopping for?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Stop listening. How about that? For me, I think the most exciting thing is actually, like, as a customer or a consumer, I should say, it's kind of a bummer, but, like, media the landscape of media is changing, and that to me is the most exciting thing. Today they announced that the Kelsey brothers have got a $100 million deal with Amazon for their podcast. First off, $100 million is like crazy.
Is that more than Jason made in his whole playing career? I mean,
Probably.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
But like, this could be on Amazon. I don't think of going to Amazon to listen, and I'm already having to learn for Thursday night football season. But like, TNT just lost basketball, and it's going to, I don't even know, like NBC, Netflix, where else is it going? Amazon, right? Like, that to me is going to completely change the way you advertise and you consume media. Like, I'm talking to my team, we love live sports, mostly because you can't fast forward through it. But like, I'm asking them, like, okay, we're moving money out of linear and we're going to put it in Amazon for Thursday Night Football and basketball this next year. To me, that's like, with the media landscape changing, like, of course there are technologies you need to deploy there, but I think that's going to be a big one over the next few years to see how people consume time. What do they say? Like, it's not time driven, but it's time specific programming, because most people don't want to watch the NFL games an hour after they've been going, or a basketball game 20 minutes in, right? You want to watch it live. So how you disperse your message across all these platforms is going to be really fun and interesting. I think that's probably the neatest thing in the space coming in the next few years, because it's still unsettled. I mean, I think these numbers are massive, and I know Amazon's got money coming in from all over with Prime and all kinds of stuff, but some of these subscription services just have recurring revenue from the service itself. So I'll be interested to watch that shake out.
So you always do join live when they give you the option?
Of course. Well, in sports, yes, but like,
Yeah, in sports.
not on anything else. Like, everything else, I'll pause, leave for 10 minutes, and come
Totally.
back.
Well, I think that's an interesting point, right? Because it's like we're in the midst of the streaming wars. Like, it's starting to, I think it'll start to settle, but like, I don't, from my friends in my previous life in entertainment, when I talk to them, like, I don't think anyone has the answer yet. And I still think it's going to be a little bit of time before you see any kind of front runners with any of these streaming platforms. And I agree, like, once that shakeout happens, I do think, and then you're going to see evolution beyond that, it's going to be really, really different.
And it's crazy. Who is it? There were 4 of them who banded together, and they were like, it was 4 companies were banding together to create one platform to rule them all, and the government's like, no you don't. And they said, no, you can't do it. It's anti-competitive. So, like, this is playing out right before our eyes, which, to me, it's kind of fun watching from the sidelines going, where do I put my ad bucks?
Well, and then they're just basically redoing the bundle in a different way.
Yeah.
That's what's old is new, etc.
Well, I mean, like, Verizon's already offering bundles of certain, streamers, right? And I think that to a certain degree is happening with, like, what that company, I remember that too. I don't remember the company, but I remember someone was trying to pull them all together, and I think now you're going to have the people who are actually like the Wi-Fi, Verizon, Spectrum, whomever, trying to sell the bundles under one package. I also think digital ads just in general are going to change. I think that, like, it's so saturated right now. I think that whole space is going to have to change.
Well, just imagine, too, the remnant market, right? They're not going to be able to sell all that advertising on their own, so you're going to have to go to the DSPs and get this remnant. It's going to be great. Like, there's going to be deals out there for days. I can already feel it.
It's dancing on grapes. I like it.
Well, yeah. Adapt, evolve,
Yeah.
or struggle, I guess.
Send your IOs to Aaron.
Yeah. I don't do any of the buying myself personally.
I'm just going to start peppering you with like 10 emails a day. I think we did it.
I think we got time for 1 or 2 questions. Anyone?
Anyone from the audience, or is happy on our calling? Oh, here we go. We got Brittany.
I think what's interesting is if we had this panel a few years ago, everyone would be talking. Oh, sorry, I'll repeat myself. So I think it's interesting because if we had this panel a few years ago, I think everyone would be talking about how people are competing with Netflix, and no one has mentioned that, nor does I think anyone think that at this point. Their product is they're trying to catch up now to everyone else who has merged and conglomerated with the Amazons of the world. I guess, in all of the moves that you all talked about, what do you think is the next prediction of something to move away?
I was sort of hinting towards that in my last little thing. Like, I think where we consume traditional television type products will be different in 5 years than it is now, is different 5 years before that. I still think there's room for a big screen, right? I don't think you're going to see people buying. I don't want to watch live sports on my phone. I don't. I want to watch it on the big screen with loud sound, and that's just the way I want it. It's just weird to me now that I have to go, okay, to a menu. We have Roku, so I go to my Roku menu, switch it, you switch over, yay. Big fan. So, yeah, I think that's going to be different. I don't know who's going to dethrone Netflix, but I think it's probably going to be, my guess, the next big one will be mandated by the government, and it'll be these app stores, Google Play and the iOS store. They're gonna bust them up and open them up, and that's going to change the game big time.
Anyone else?
Curious how the election influences your buying in the fall.
Good question. I mean, honestly, it affects us because ad rates are higher. I mean that's bottom line. There's a lot of partners we have. We like to follow the eyeballs, and if cable news is where everyone's going to be, probably buy some more cable news. And if it gets too polarizing, you have to pull it. I mean, I'm not going to be out there trying to buy the next debate, but I think on a Tuesday night in October, probably going to get some pretty good eyeballs, watching the cable news networks.
Yeah, we don't, for the kind of, like, with American Girl, generally, like, we're in the thick of the
The question was whether for this side.
No.
I've got an idea. Look, my mic says dead, so I'll just be extra loud. Oh, okay. I was around. I was doing this exact same job during the last election. We bought more live news than we ever have in our history. It was outperforming live sports, and yeah, holy smokes, it was crazy. And we bought it all. Like, we bought left, center, right. We didn't care. And then,
Even green?
if you could, yeah, we were buying it all. Like, we just knew that if people were talking about the day's news and the election and the runoff, people were tuning in. It was must-watch television. So we bought a ton of it. We're planning to buy a ton of it again because people won't skip past live news. It's better than sports when you run up to the election and we just look for deals. We go into the remnant market and look for a good deal. Nobody should buy remnant. We want to be alone. Get in your upfront.
I do think that this election is probably, like, those eyeballs are going to be probably more glued, so that'll be really interesting, I think, to see. Like, you have a pretty active audience there.
Anyone else? We got one more. Yeah, that's you.
I can ask it from here. You mentioned upfronts, and I was just thinking about upfronts. So, as marketers, what are some of the commercial benefits, or even outside of commercial benefits, that you are most, that you value most in your upfronts with your partners, and just thinking about 2025?
Upfronts, right now for us is limited to live sports and some streaming. So, I don't think we're probably not the best brand to talk about it, but we do buy, we do make live sports commitments early because we feel like that's the thing that's going to be selling out. It's not going to be your Thursday night must-see TV. That doesn't exist anymore. You can find similar audience sizes on cable news during an election year. Yeah, I do think, I think upfronts have changed. I mean, I think streaming and upfronts has changed things up. Netflix actually had a really good upfront. And I don't know if it's the right thing at this time. It's probably a little early, but I think that that's probably where brands will be leaning.
We buy in the upfront. Like, I look at it as a chance to get this year's prices next year. So when I look at my upfront, I look at Q4 most. So I'll put 75% of my upfront dollars all loaded into Q4 so I can maintain good rates and then hold them into 2025. I also, exactly like you said, I look at the programming I know is going to sell out and I get my spot. But I'm looking for, I also like it because it's the one time we'll go out and we'll try to leverage the power of our agency, right? To get really, really good deals. And they buy, for us and 10, 15 other big brands. And we press hard and we want a good deal. And for us, there's always an alternative in the online space. Most of our money isn't in TV, right? 85% of our budget is digital. So like our TV spend is small by comparison. But if I can get 20%, 15%, 10% of a deal, I'm going to look at that and make more of a commitment now. But I find that by the time you've negotiated and got everything locked and loaded, if you put your focus on Q4, you get a better return and it gives you leverage for the rest of the next year or the beginning of the calendar next year, and that's the way I like to deploy it.
So we take a similar approach too, and we have an agency of record that we buy through. I would say that for the majority of the brands of Mattel, it's very much an upfront buy, and it's very specific, right? Because we're targeting kids, we're targeting parents. That's generally the extent of it. On American Girl specifically, though, it is a little bit different because we have a D2C model, so we require a certain amount of flexibility. So we'll buy a certain amount in the upfront, but generally we're very much a second half business as well, so we need that flexibility depending on the first half does. And we will buy like ad hoc and where we think, based on the trends, based on the insights that we have, is going to be the most efficient buy for us and get us the most eyeballs.
Dun dun dun. We did it.